I'm sorry, ma'am, it's a $68 billion project. If I could have
No,
perhaps
thank you.
a minute
I would
to speak,
appreciate
it would
if
be
you would
terrific.
submit your comments. We only have about 2
I'm
minutes
sorry,
left.
but it's a project,
and
the
there are
largest
people behind
project
you.
in the United States history, and if I could have more than a minute of your time, I would really
I'm
appreciate
so
it.
sorry we don't have the room.
Hi, I'm Scott Shackford with Reason.com and Reason TV, and I am here with Eric Christen from the Coalition for Fair Employment in Construction. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Scott.
Your coalition is involved in California with what we call project labor agreements, and in particular right now with what's going on with California's high-speed rail project. So to start with, tell us a bit about what a project labor agreement is and why we should be concerned.
Absolutely. They're typically 30 to 60-page documents that govern the building of any construction project, and when what we refer to as unions put these into place, all workers that work on them have to, for all intents and purposes, become union for the duration of the project.
What happens if a municipality or a developer resists a project labor agreement? What if they don't want a PLA?
Well, that's what we help them do. We help provide them with the insight as to why this isn't a good deal for them, and we provide them information, data, empirical evidence about why these are bad and why they're harmful and why it will raise their costs.
What is the relationship between project labor agreements and the high-speed rail that's being developed here in California?
Union leaders. The connection is in this state, despite the fact that in the construction industry, as in the industry as a whole, constructions only represent less than 1 out of every 5 workers. The reality is they have very deep pockets, and in this state they're very powerful. So what they do is they try and get these placed on as many projects as possible, because you can imagine non-union workers paying union dues and paying into union health, welfare, and pension plans that they will never benefit from. That's free money to the unions. One of the things that really, as you've learned I'm sure with high-speed rail, is the level of secrecy is really remarkable. They are not out front with regards to anything. We really had to dig, and we found the project labor agreement referenced under a euphemism, Orwellian, if you will, of a community benefit agreement. Well, who could be opposed to the community benefiting from something? And when we read it, it was a typical PLA that says you have to do all those things. So what they did is they understood that we've kind of given PLAs a black eye, so they didn't want to make this very public. They were hoping it would just kind of sneak through, but we found it. And what you had was the head of the Building and Construction Trades Council of California sitting on the High-Speed Rail Authority board, so we know where it came from.
How has your coalition been responding to the situation?
Education is the first thing we're doing. Last night we had a press conference that was well attended in San Diego, because San Diego residents need to understand that even though only 48% of them supported Prop 1A back in 2008, they're being asked to pay the equivalent amount of the voters in San Francisco that voted 72% in favor of Prop 1A. And so education is a big part of it. It is going on. Most people are still in disbelief it's even happening. They just thought that this boondoggle would kind of collapse of its own weight.
Right.
We are educating them. No, it's real. It's happening. And oh, by the way, it also has, as if it needed any other reason to oppose it, it has this monopoly agreement on it that basically punishes any worker that's not union. Number 2, we're helping to fund the lawsuit, which on May 31st will be going to court. We believe, and the proponents of this believe, that it is in violation of Prop 1A to about 6 different instances.
Can you give me an example of, the most important reason it's in violation of?
Sure, absolutely. This has to make it from Los Angeles to San Francisco in 2 hours and 40 minutes. That just simply can't be done. That's number 1. So they're lying to people when they say this is a 220 mile an hour high-speed rail. When the governor came in, Governor Brown, and saw that the price tag was in excess of $100 billion, he knew he was in trouble. This thing was taking on water. How do we change it? What they did is they went from a high-speed rail system to what's known as a blended system, where they have to essentially use Amtrak rails going through Los Angeles. So you only get high speeds when you're in about the middle of the state, and you get up maybe to 200 miles an hour. Everywhere else you're going 70 to 100 miles an hour, so it's not really a high-speed rail. They need to keep saying it goes 220 miles an hour so they can make that 2 hour and 40 minute time work out, but it really doesn't. And they say that they won't have any subsidies for it. Unfortunately, the governor let the cat out of the bag and said, of course it's going to have to be subsidized, because our ridership levels are never going to be met, therefore we're going to have some subsidies. Now, he's since backtracked from that, but the reality is, as everybody knows, is that this isn't going to be making money, it's going to be taking money. If it was going to be making money, Wall Street and the private sector would be putting money into this.
Your organization, your coalition, you recently attempted to speak at a hearing in Sacramento about the high-speed rail project. What happened at this hearing?
Well, it was something I would imagine would be akin to what you'd find happening in, some kind of North Korean parliamentary event where you get up to speak after 59 minutes of having the bureaucrats speak and say nothing. It was just, they had to do this because the law mandates that they go before the legislature and say, here's what's going on. They spoke for 59 minutes. The chairwoman, Bonnie Lowenthal out of Long Beach, said, well, we only have a minute left where this room has to be turned over to another group, so we have a minute of public comments. Well, I got up, I was the first speaker, and said, ma'am, I apologize, but the largest, most expensive project in human history, I think deserves a little bit more than 30 seconds of our time. We had a back and forth, and essentially what they did is they tried to shut it down. Well, I stood around in that room for an hour, and that room remained empty. Finally, I left after an hour and a half. There was no other meeting. There was an attempt to keep the public out of this, not asking any questions that make people uncomfortable, and it was really quite remarkable. So they allowed about 30 seconds of public comments on this.
Labor unions are pretty powerful in California, especially in relationship with the government. What is your avenue for success? What does success look like for your organization?
In this state where we really are outmanned, outgunned, and they have pockets that are much deeper than ours, what we do is we really approach this using a very non-linear approach. We have to be flexible, we have to be smart, we have to be unpredictable. So what we're doing is we're becoming involved with groups from the left and the right, because this isn't just opposed by, if you look at the new field poll that came out with regards to where people are on this. If it was on the ballot today, Prop 1A would go down 60 to 40. Right. Democrats are becoming increasingly opposed to this. Republicans, obviously, independents, people who just see this as a boondoggle. So what we're doing is we're reaching out to a broad cadre of folks and saying, this is still moving forward. How can we work together? How can we raise money for the Prop 1A lawsuit? How do we keep this in the media? So it's really a nonlinear, multifaceted approach because we don't have the resources that the other side does.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time. This is Eric Christen with the Coalition for Fair Employment in Construction. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For Reason TV, I'm Scott Shackford.